The climate crisis is here, and communities most impacted
are standing up.
This is Earth Deserves More Than a Day, hosted by Rainier Avenue Radio and King County Parks. From elected officials to grassroots leaders, from river tours to cultural art, we gather to take action. Listen in. Learn more, then get involved, because the Earth can't wait, and neither can we.
This particular discussion is an interview. My guest is Season Oltmann, Executive Director for the American Lung Association. Let's get right to this. For anyone who may be unfamiliar with the American Lung Association, I think I know what the American Lung Association stands for and does, but I don't have a really good grasp of it. So just share with all of us.
Sure.
The American Lung Association, who are you? What do you do?
Sure. The American Lung Association is saving lives by improving lung health and preventing lung disease. And we do that through funding research, education, and advocacy.
What are some of the things that you fund? What are some of the
Definitely.
ways that you work within the community?
Definitely. So we function under our strategic imperatives, or our pillars that we associate our work with. One of them is defeating lung cancer. We know that lung cancer is the highest mortality cancer of any cancers, more than breast, colon, and colon cancer, breast, and cervical cancer combined. And then we work with all of the 46 lung diseases, asthma, emphysema, COPD that Americans have. And we know that there are more than 36 million Americans that are living with lung issues currently today. So we work to improve their health. We work to help their families and their caregivers.
This to me and to our audience, with this thing that we're calling environmental justice.
Yeah.
How does it fit in?
We know that clean air is essential to our health. Our lungs are the only organ in the body that's exposed to the environment. So we know that clean air impacts our health. We also know that climate change and the increasing temperatures on the earth are affecting the quality of our air. We know that we don't have equitable air quality here in the state of Washington, but also nationwide, worldwide. And those are issues that we are working on in that research, education, and advocacy space.
Okay, so the question may be, why, if this is all the same air that we're all breathing, why do we have different air quality?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We know that communities that have a high density of people of color are typically around traffic ways and freeways. We know that our air quality is most highly impacted by transportation. And so the reason why we're seeing environmental injustice is that people of color in communities are living in areas where our air is then concentrating, or they're having a higher level of impact on that transportation contamination.
So I'd like to get your opinion. Is it necessary, or maybe it's not necessary, or why is it necessary to center race, to center class, to center equity, when you're having this discussion with someone from the American Lung Association? Is that important?
I believe it's important. I think that we know that communities that are high density of communities of color or low income are living in communities like the panel was talking about before, right here.
Are there, again, specifically in Southeast Seattle, in the Puget Sound area, what can you share with us what those challenges might be? And because again, whoever, I'm assuming, lives in these communities, whatever your race is, whatever your ethnicity is, whatever your age are, it's impacting everyone. And I would guess, right?
Absolutely. I think that specific issues that this community faces center around accessibility. So the prior, and I said before, but the prior panelist was talking about walkability. Transportation is the most, the highest impact on our air quality.
Well, we here at Rainier Avenue Radio actually broadcast several different debates, and I don't remember a question related to what the policies were or what the platform was for climate justice and environmental justice. How does the American Lung Association work with, does the American Lung Association work with our elected officials?
Again, I talked about transportation and fossil fuel emissions being the highest impact on air quality. And we supported House Bill 2409 that passed both the House and Senate in Olympia. And this bill strengthens our clean fuel standard. And what that means is that transportation and our families living near roadways are going to have better air quality because our standards are going to be higher. And so policy and compliance will be something that will be able to be tracked.
How do you make that a reality? I mean, as we one of the things as well, that the air doesn't care what the boundary is, you know? And is this something that you are finding as you work with, that this is an important issue for our elected officials? And
listen, people are busy.
I know.
People are paying their utility bill and buying groceries. And I so appreciated Rainier Radio talking about educating yourself. But the reality is we're busy. And tracking what's happening in Olympia or tracking what's happening in Washington, D.C. is hard. I would say lean on associations like my association, lean on organizations that are helping and are reflecting what your beliefs are.
But it is what it is. You know, we live in a democratic society.
We do.
And the current federal administration, President Trump, in an executive order last Tuesday, directed the Justice Department to identify any state and local laws and regulations that hamper energy development and stop their enforcement. How do you navigate, as the American Lung Association, these changes in federal policies?
We have a report that is coming out actually tomorrow on Earth Day, called The State of the Air. It's a report that has been around for decades. It's a report that organizations around environmental concerns look to, and it is a combination of many different organizations tracking and compliance information or compliance data. In this report, we know that nearly half of the people living in the U.S. Are breathing unhealthy air. Half. We also know that people of color are twice as likely to live in a community with poor air quality as a white American. And we know that Hispanic individuals are living in communities that have living in communities that are 3 times more likely to live in communities that have poor air quality than a white American.
For whatever reason, if you're Black, you're breathing air that's 2 times worse than if you're white. And if you are Hispanic, you're breathing air that's 3 times worse than if you're white.
That's accurate.
I just don't know where to go with that. Like, is this intentional? Is this unintentional? How do we get in this position? Obviously, what do we do about it to correct it? Is it getting worse? I know that's like 17 questions that I'm asking of you, but you have this information as the American Lung Association. What do you do with this information?
I'm going to bundle your question. How's that?
Okay.
And I'm going to say this information. Obviously, for those of you listening, middle-aged white woman, I am other in this. I'm providing information, but I'm also understanding that I'm not living in this community, but I want to make sure that this community can have impact and identify their route forward. So I talked about State of the Air that's being released tomorrow. Traditionally, I can't tell you what the results are, but traditionally, Washington has received a failing grade. This report grades ozone levels, short-term particle pollution, and year-round particle pollution. So this data is a year old, what this report is reporting on. Traditionally, Washington has received failing grades, and some of that is due to the wildfire incidences that we've had, like I said, annually for the past several years.
And you'll find that depending on where you live in the state, this is different. This impacts differently. Well, not just in the state, but countries in Africa and Southeast Asia and the Caribbean contribute the least to global emissions, but suffer the most devastating climate impacts, from droughts to floods to food insecurity. How can you help me make that make sense?
No, I can't make that make sense. I think that the U.S. has a responsibility to be in coalition with worldwide leaders that are interested and supportive of environmental change. And we have a responsibility to lead that effort.
What happens to the lungs when we are breathing? I don't know what to call it, but you could call them air particles, or what are these things that we are breathing, and what is it doing to our lungs?
The report that's coming out tomorrow is tracking ozone and particle pollution. That particle impacts in the lung. So our lung has the capacity to clean air by filtration, but when those particles, those microscopic particles, get too small for our lungs to effectively filter and clean, that impacts our health. The other point of the American Lung Association specifically is the 36 million people that are living with lung disease. When we have poor air quality on top of that, those people are the people that we are supporting, because those people are not able to leave their house. And we know that communities of color are more highly impacted by those kinds of diseases. So air quality is more impactful to them than somebody who doesn't have lung disease.
What are, in this community, in this state, what you consider to be the pressing challenges in regard to the quality of the air?
So we know that climate change and transportation are the two highest impacts on air quality.
My guest again, Season Oltmann, Executive Director of the American Lung Association. Season, I want to thank you for joining us and having this conversation.
What do you get when culture, climate, and community collide? You get Earth Deserves More Than a Day. Rainier Avenue Radio and King County Parks stew down with a week of real talk, real people, and real solutions. This ain't your average Earth Day. Tune in and feel the energy, because the movement is now.